Have you ever seen a dead body? I don't mean in a funeral home beautifully arranged in a coffin, I mean, just dead with that awful stillness that comes to a body when the soul, spirit, life force, whatever, leaves it. I'm a police officer. I live in a small town, and I've never even investigated a murder, let alone seen a murder victim, but I have seen many corpses, fresh corpses, if you will, killed by accidents simply because they got too old, although doctors never call it that, several times by suicide. These suicides were probably the worst bodies you could ever see. I mean, they're dead because they wanted to be dead, cruel to the survivors. My story starts with me coming home from work, not early, not late, just at my usual time. It's the middle of winter. So I use the remote control to open the garage door as I pull into the driveway. My wife's car is there in its usual spot. No other people's car in the garage or driveway. I parked on my usual side of the garage. There is a lot of usual going on here. I walked into the house from the garage, no premonitions, no worries, just a normal homecoming after work. Walking into the kitchen, I called out, "Janie, I'm home," no response. The beginnings of worry, not much worry yet, just, I wonder where she is. Type worry. I walked through the kitchen into the hallway, no, Janie, no sounds at all. I started up the stairs to the bedroom level, still no noise. My anxiety was getting more and more serious. Almost at the very top of the stairs, the anxiety intensified. A premonition surfaced, something bad was happening. I actually pulled out my service weapon for the first time in years. Our bedroom door was closed. I took a breath in and partially exhaled to deal with the stress. I turned the doorknob and pushed the door open with my gun and stopped. I immediately thought of crime, but as I stood there and analyzed what I saw, I realized it was probably worse than a crime. My wife was lying in our bed with that awful immobility that characterizes a dead body. I could have tried to run up to her and put my arms around her and shake her and maybe discover that she wasn't really dead, that she was just sleeping or maybe unconscious. But next to her with the same stillness, lay a man. I didn't go to the bed. I went to the windows and opened both of them as wide as I could. Even in midwinter weather. Then I turned off the propane heater, which my wife had probably turned on to keep them warm while they did what they did. I did touch my wife's carotid artery just to make sure no pulse. I didn't touch the man. Didn't go to the other side of the bed. I was in shock. I felt like I was moving in water or molasses, slow and hard. My thoughts were some mishmash of despair and trying to think the way a policeman must think when he discovers two dead bodies. I stood there with my arms down at my sides, trying unsuccessfully to look at my wife and not see the asshole next to her. When my brain started working a little better, I realized that I had hosted my gun at some point. That realization activated my brain. I walked out of the bedroom and down the stairs. I couldn't call my partner. He had just gotten home from work, and there was nothing he could do to help with this mess. I mean, why ruin his evening? I decided to call my boss, Captain Caparelli, Detective Squad. "Dave," I said, and thought as I had a million times that David was an odd name for an Italian kid. Maybe his mom had a relative named David, but hey. "Who's this?" Dave, this is Jack, Jack Thomas," and I couldn't go on. "Jack, what's up? You just finished your shift. Did you get home okay?" "Yeah, Dave. Listen, I need you to come to my house with a team, you know, an ambulance, I guess, to a crime scene, but, no sirens, just quiet. You know?" I knew my voice didn't sound very coherent. "No, Jack. I don't understand." "Now take a deep breath, exhale a little, and tell me what's going on." I almost laughed when I heard him remind me of the stress reliever we all had to practice when we needed it. "Dave, yeah. Okay. Look, I had an accident at home. Just come to my house with the team. Okay? Jack, I'm on my way." I think the sound of my voice convinced him that something serious was going on. I just sat there in the living room waiting for the circus that was about to descend on me in that bedroom stairs. I couldn't go back upstairs, but I managed to open the front door. Captain Caparelli walked in a few minutes later, followed by 2 uniformed officers, 2 EMTs, and a guy I knew was our local crime scene investigator. Dave raised his hand, and they all stopped. Then he walked over and sat down next to me. "Jack, before we go any further, how about you hand me your service weapon?" I looked at him in surprise, but then realized I shouldn't be surprised. Judging by my incoherent phone call, he was probably wondering what I could do. "Sure, Dave, here it is," I said, handing it over. "See, it wasn't fired. Actually, I never fired it in the line of duty." "Okay. Thank you. Now could you tell us or maybe show us what's going on?" I stood up about 100 years older than I was an hour ago and led him upstairs. Again, he gestured for the others to wait. We reached the end of the stairs, and I gestured for him to go into what used to be my and Janie's bedroom. I would never sleep there again. And neither would she. So it certainly wasn't our bedroom anymore. I recovered a little from the initial shock and walked into the bedroom following him. "Dave, this is Janie. You might recognize her from the department parties. I don't know who this asshole is. I came home from work, went upstairs, and found them like this." The heater was on. I turned it off and immediately opened both windows. "That's why it's so cold in here." I didn't touch either of them. Only felt Janie's carotid artery to see if there was a pulse. There wasn't. Then I got out, went downstairs, and called you. I think I was in a bit of shock when I called, and I apologize for that. I think I'm still a little bit in shock, but I'm coping. I know you need to process that scene. I'd like to wait downstairs. I really don't want to stay up here. Jesus, Jack, hell, yeah, go downstairs. Wait, I'll go with you and get a team together to deal with this. He got them all together and they set to work. A short while later an ambulance arrived with 2 folding gurneys with wrapped molds on them. Someone had brought out a heater, I think, to test it. And Dave sat down next to me again. "Jack, I know this is a terrible time for you, but I have to ask, do you know this man? I mean, the man upstairs." I tried not to look at him, not very professional of me, but, no, I don't think I've ever seen him. I'm gonna show his driver's license, just the photo part, and ask again, have you ever seen him? "Do you know him?" I did look at the picture. Actually studied it, not to see if I knew the asshole, but to try to see what Janie saw in him. But I just couldn't see anything. "No, Dave. I've never seen him. I don't know who he is, and maybe worse. I don't see any magic. No attraction, nothing that would draw Janie to him that would," and I started crying. Crying in front of Dave and the guys at the crime scene. I tried to stop. I knew they'd tell the whole sordid story all over the department. I knew people would feel sorry for me, but at the same time, whisper about how I'd failed to satisfy my wife, how I was a cuckold. At some point, my partner Mike Blankenship and his wife Molly showed up. Dave disappeared, and Mike and Molly sat with me, gave me something to drink and finally took me into the kitchen to try to feed me. No one said much. They just sat with me. Molly held my hand. They both said it would get better. Eventually, they kind of picked me up and walked me to their car. We drove to their house. Molly gave me sleeping pills, and they put me to bed in their guest room. I had never taken sleeping pills before, and I think the pills caused me to have strange dreams that night. Dreams about Janie and me, Janie and an asshole, Janie and some other man. Eventually, the effects of the pills wore off, and I woke up early, still a dark winter morning. I lay there thinking about my now deceased marriage, wondering why Jamie had cheated for how long with one asshole or with others, many others. Bad thoughts that come to mind in the dark and a strange house. Did she love this guy? Was she going to leave me? We'd been married 10 years, had no children. Neither of us was a fan of children. And 4 months ago, We went on a Caribbean cruise to celebrate our 10-year anniversary. I thought we had a lot of fun, and I know we had a lot of sex. And I thought the sex was good. We even went nude swimming on the beach on St. Martin. After our shower, the sex was amazing. Finally, she cried out, "Jackie, Jackie, 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 you killed me. I'll never be able to get out of this bed." Funny choice of words in retrospect. And now in the Blankenship guest room, I cried again, remembering that time on the ship. When Janie recovered a little, I took the brush and began brushing her hair, something I rarely did. For me, brushing her hair was something even more intimate than sex. I could lick the most intimate parts of her body, and I did it enthusiastically. I enjoyed it, and I think she enjoyed it. But brushing her hair somehow touched a string in me. I remember that day on the ship, running the brush through her hair, untangling the tangles that had formed that we had rolled around on the bed and crying because I loved her so much. And now, lying in the dark, I cry again because I know it's all gone. And maybe it never was. Finally, I heard a noise in the house, got up, took a quick shower in the bathroom, put on the same clothes I had on the night before and wandered into the kitchen. Molly was already there making breakfast. Coffee was ready. She didn't say anything, just hugged me, and it was the right thing to do. The feel of a woman's warm body, her arms around me, the smell of her hair, gave me more comfort that morning than any words could. We stood like that for a minute or so, and then she gently pushed me away. "Have some coffee, Jack, and some breakfast. I think you need both this morning." "Thanks, Molly. You're right, I probably haven't eaten anything since lunch yesterday." "Molly." She turned away from the stove to look at me. "Thank you for the hug. It means a lot to me." "Well, Jack, you mean a lot to me." "Me too, partner," Mike said as he walked into the kitchen. "I know you just got the worst handout life can give you, but I also know you're a tough nut to crack and you'll get through this shit show." Molly and Mike didn't go to work. After breakfast, they took me to a nearby park. Mike tricked me into chasing a soccer ball with him. Then Molly tried to get me to play tennis, and then they gave up trying to distract me. We sat down at the picnic table, and I just looked at Mike. "Okay, partner," he said, "obviously, fun and games aren't working. So how about I tell you the news about yesterday? Would that be better?" "Mike, you know it would. I need information, not distraction." "Okay." Cell phone rings. I called the office early this morning, and I'll pass on what I was told. The guy's name was, James Johnson. He was an executive at a lumber export company. Wife is a housewife who takes care of their two kids 10 and 8 years old. She got hysterical last night when Robert O'Toole, you know, Robert. Right? I nodded. Robert O'Toole was our best cop in death notification work. Well, he and the pastor went to their house to give her the news, just the notice, and the news of the cause of death, and she got hysterical. I think eventually she came to her senses a little bit. Her parents came in and O'Toole and the pastor left. That's when things must have gotten really interesting. The TV news was already running a story about a malfunctioning propane tank and 2 people, not married to each other, dying of carbon monoxide poisoning. Mrs. Johnson must have seen this because she went a little crazy. She started leaving her husband, well, her late husband at that point anyway. She started throwing his stuff out on the front lawn. And about that time, his parents showed up. I guess unaware of the story on TV, she attacks them, I think, for what a nasty son they raised. One of them calls 911 and a patrol car pulls up. Then the landlady really freaks out. She grabs a knife from somewhere and tries to stab one of the responding cops, who turns out to be a woman. The police officers who arrive must have been unaware of the earlier event, because one of the 2 patrolmen hits her with a stun gun. This causes her parents to get into a fight and more cops are called in, and of course, the TV van shows up. Eventually, enough superiors arrive to calm everyone down. No one goes to jail, and I understand that everyone apologizes. Oh my God. It's a shit show. I had no idea what kind of bad show you were talking about. Yeah, the captain asked me to keep you out of the office for a few days until he calls and says you can come back. You and I are both on full pay now, so that's good. He said it might be good for you to get away maybe for a week, like somewhere warm, maybe a cruise. Yeah. Right now, I feel like I'm on a cruise. Well, I think he thinks it might help you to be away from the show. Give you some time to recover from what your wife did. You know, Mike and Molly, you guys are great friends, and I know you and Caparelli are doing well, but I need to stay here. I can't make sense of what happened if I'm somewhere far away on a cruise ship. Besides, I couldn't tell them about my last cruise with Janie and how I cried about it last night. I'll call Caparelli tomorrow and tell him I plan to stay here, figure things out, and get back to work when I'm ready, and that's what I've done. I got a temporary apartment. I just couldn't live in the house anymore. I tried to sell it, but the realtor, a buddy's wife, told me the house wasn't selling well when the event happened there. She suggested I rent it out for a while, and then she could sell it when the story became old news. I ended up renting it to a young couple who had decent jobs, but no money for a down payment. Maybe they can be my buyers in the future. The coroner's hearing was exactly 1 month after the 2 deaths. I had to testify along with Caparelli and the other guys who were there that day. The verdict was indeed an accidental death from carbon monoxide poisoning due to a faulty propane gas heater. It turned out that the heater had been recalled because it was defective and the manufacturer had declared bankruptcy, I guess, because of the number of deaths attributed to the heater. Janie and I missed the recall notice and never thought about the dangers of using the heater. Because of the bankruptcy, any claims I could have made against the heater manufacturer were useless. But I got some good news from our insurance coverage department. The department covered all employees with a $500,000 life insurance policy and withheld $12 monthly per pay period for the same coverage for our wives. And, plus, there was a double indemnity for accidental death. That meant I received a $1 million tax-free. I never learned anything about the affair between Janie and this asshole, how long it lasted, how they met, how it started, how they felt about each other. That last unknown was the worst part for me. What did they feel for each other, and what would it mean for their spouses? From the rumors, the asshole's widow was a real bitch trying to blame everyone, but her husband for what happened. Maybe he wanted to leave his wife and was trying to get Janie to leave me, or maybe Janie and the asshole had already decided to leave their spouses and run off together. Or maybe they were just fuck buddies, or who the fuck knows. This is going to haunt me for a long, long time. For now, I just go to work and hope for a better future.